Hey guys, welcome to The Market is Open. Check out our website, themarketisopen.com, where you can read stock market articles. You can even rank them using our bull, bear, and pig buttons. And you can even share your own news articles. Okay, today we're going to do a bit of a Finance 101 type video. We're going to talk about RRSPs and 401ks. Now, of course, please ask your financial advisor before making any decisions. Of course, there's many different use cases for RRSPs and 401ks. For example, if your employer is matching your contributions, they're basically giving you free money and you should take free money. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to mainly talk about the mechanics of how the RRSP and 401k work. They're fairly similar accounts. The RRSP is for Canada. It is the Registered Retirement Savings Plan, and the 401k is for the United States, and they are quite similar. They work almost the same way. Basically, these are registered accounts, and they will be deferring your taxes. So instead of paying taxes today, if you make an investment under these umbrellas or these accounts, then you don't pay tax on that income today. You will pay it when you retire or in the future. So today we're going to try to answer these three questions. When should I contribute to my RRSP or 401k? Can a non-registered account, this is an account that's not an RRSP or a 401k, so can a non-registered account outperform an RRSP or a 401k, like assuming that we invest in the same type of security, but we just want to see if the mechanics allow it to outperform the RRSP. And if not, how can I maximize my non-registered investments? So we're going to start with a little example over here. I'm going to call this the fixed income strategy, and I'm going to show you how I set this up. So basically we're starting with our marginal tax rate of 30%. So a marginal tax rate is the tax rate that you will be paying on your next dollar that you earn. So because we have like a tax bracket type system where the more money you make, the higher the taxes that you pay on that next dollar, we're going to be using the marginal rate because that's the money that you're going to be contributing to your RSP. You contribute off the top portion of your income. Contributing to your RSP or your 401k basically reduces your income. It reduces the amount of taxes that you're going to be paying on your income. And then we're going to assume a growth rate of around 10%. For the purposes of these examples, the growth rate doesn't really matter. We're basically comparing an RRSP or 401k, which is a registered type plan, versus a non-registered plan. That's the main goal. The growth rate of how your money grows, it makes a difference with how much money you'll end up with at the end, but it doesn't really make a difference in how much, in the percentage of taxes that you pay. Of course, if you made more money, you're going to be paying more tax, but you'll be paying more tax in both the RRSP and the non-registered account. And then finally, we're going to use the marginal tax rate when you retire. When you retire, you start withdrawing money from your RRSP, or you sort of cash out your investments, and you pay tax on them at that point. And because these investments or there's new income from selling your retirement investments adds on to your income, this will also be at the marginal tax rate. Now, normally when you retire, you won't be making like that much money. All your income will come from your savings, your RRSP or 401k. So you won't be making as much money, and therefore your marginal tax rate should actually be lower when you retire than currently when you're working and making more money. So we're gonna talk about that soon. But first, here's the example. So we're gonna start with $1,000, and in the first case of the registered account, you're gonna have the full $1,000. You're going to invest that inside your RRSP or 401k, and you're going to watch it grow for 10 years. Of course, if you're in your 20s, for example, this could go on for 40 years, and you'll have a much longer Excel sheet. But we're going to use 10 years for this purpose. It doesn't make a difference in terms of comparing the two. It'll just make a difference in how much money you have at the end. Now, for the non-registered account, you're going to be taking that same $1,000, but you're going to be paying tax on it right away because that's your income. You earned income on that, and you're going to have to pay tax today. Whereas the RSP, you defer the income until you retire, so you pay the tax at the end. Okay, so basically you take your $1,000 in your RSP, you grow it at 10%, then it gets compounded the next year, and you keep compounding 10%. And at the end of 10 years, you're left with about $2,600, but this is money that you have not yet paid tax on. So when you retire, of course, you'll be taking the money out over time, but let's just say for the simplicity of this example that you're going to pay 30% marginal tax rate right away when you retire and you take all the money out. and you're left with $1,800. Now in the non-registered case, of course, you got tax right away, and then you're still getting your 10%. However, I call this the fixed income strategy because you're getting your 10% from things like bonds, or let's say even if your savings account is paying 10%, which it probably isn't right now, but somehow you're making 10%, and so 10% of $700 is actually $70. So what happened here? We only got $49 extra. Well, we had to pay tax on that money because that was income for this year, and our marginal tax rate is 30%. So instead of getting the $70, we're only getting 70% of that, which is $49. And then, so we're actually only making 7% per year, and we grow that until year 10. But at year 10, we've already paid all of our tax, so we get to keep the full amount of $1,300. Remember, previously we didn't pay tax on this amount, and then we had to pay tax, and the number dropped. But you'll notice that the RRSP is better. The RRSP leaves you with more money at the end. So that's great. That shows the power of the RRSP, and that shows why it's important to make an investment in the RRSP, because it's tax deferred and you end up with more money when you retire. Now, even better is that if you assume that the marginal tax rate perhaps drops to, let's say, 20% when you retire, then you'll see the RRSP becomes even better because you're going to be paying less tax when you retire, whereas you paid the tax on the non-registered all throughout when you were working and earning and paying a 30% marginal tax bracket. So the lower your marginal tax rate is when you retire, the higher your RRSP value will be. For example, if it's zero somehow, the RRSP gets even better, and the non-registered stays the same. Now, to answer our first question of when should we contribute to our RRSP, the answer to that question, again, ask your financial advisor, but it should be when your current marginal tax rate becomes quite high that you believe it's going to be a lot higher than your marginal tax rate when you retire. So let me show you how changing some of these numbers will affect your investments. So for example, if your marginal tax rate today is actually 50%, then your non-registered account has a terrible return, and your RRSP is outperforming it by even more than double, assuming that you retire with a 30% rate. However, if your marginal tax rate today is extremely low, for example, you just started working, you're not making a lot of money, let's pretend it's only 10%, for example, then actually a non-registered investment, so the money that if you didn't put it in your RRSP, would actually outperform the RRSP, assuming that when you retire, your tax rate will be higher than where it is today. And that's sort of significantly higher. Like if it was only 11%, which is higher, the RRSP is still better due to the tax-free growth rate of the RRSP. Your money grows compounded tax-free, whereas the non-registered account, you have to pay tax each year because you're earning income as you're growing your money. So that's something to keep in mind. You want to start investing in your RRSP when your tax rate becomes high enough that when you retire, your tax rate is much lower. Okay, so I think we've answered the question, can the non-registered RRSP outperform the RRSP or the 401k? And the answer is yes, if your tax bracket is actually much lower today than it will be when you retire. So in order for that not to happen, like if you're going to be investing in your RRSP, you want to wait until your tax bracket is high enough. Otherwise, it doesn't seem to make sense to invest in your RRSP at that time. Now, the final question that I wanted to answer is how can we maximize our non-registered investment? Can we actually do even better than this scenario over here without changing the growth rate and without making any big changes in the marginal tax rates? Is there a way to maximize your non-registered account to bring it a little bit closer to the RRSP? And the answer is yes, it's possible. We're going to use something, I'm just going to call it the index fund strategy, but it's basically going to be investing in stocks instead of investing in fixed income. And so the scenario is going to be the exact same. The marginal tax rate is going to be 30% at the beginning and at the end, just like in our previous example here. We can play around with the numbers afterwards and see how that affects things. But basically, it's the exact same scenario. We start with our $1,000 and we grow it at 10% per year. And in the non-registered, we start with our $1,000. We pay tax on it at 30%, and then we grow it throughout the year. Now, you'll notice right away that in year one, we actually get our full $70. Which is our full 10%. So how is that possible? How did we do that before? In our previous example, we had to pay tax on that, and we were only left with that $49. So the nice thing about the index fund strategy is that if you don't sell your stocks, basically, I mean, you could even do this with an individual stock, then you don't pay tax. So if you can find something that you can hold for a very long period of time, like 10 years or 20 years or even 40 years, that you don't ever want to sell, then you won't pay tax until you cash out. And so an individual stock might not be the best idea in this case because who knows what will happen to a single company over a 10-year or even 40-year span. However, an index fund is you're sort of buying the entire market, you're buying a basket of stocks, and the index funds tend to perform quite well, possibly like an 8 to 10% return over the long term. That's a per year return over the long term. So that might be a good strategy for buying and holding, basically, and not really worrying if the market falls. You're not gonna sell everything. You might decide to add even more money because you don't even need the money today. You just need it for retirement, and that's the purpose of this example. If we compare the RRSP to the non-registered account and we put the money in the exact same type of fund, but one is in the RRSP and one is in the non-registered account, then we still have to pay tax at the beginning. But if we don't sell, then the money grows and we only pay tax at the end. So you'll notice that in year 10, you have all of your RRSP money, which you still haven't paid tax on, and you have all of your non-registered money, which you also have not paid tax on. However, for the RRSP, you haven't paid tax on any of it. So you need to pay your marginal tax rate on the entire amount, and you're left with $1,815, the exact same as in the previous example. However, for your non-registered account, you've already paid some of the taxes. You've already paid tax on the first $700. You just haven't paid tax on all of the income or all of the money you've earned from your investment over the last 10 years. And now you decide to sell your investment, so you need to start paying tax on that. Now, index funds and stocks are taxed differently than fixed income. Fixed income is taxed based on your marginal tax rate. Your full income tax rate is what you pay on fixed income from your bank account or from bonds, for example. However, from an index fund, you pay capital gains tax because this money was invested in the stock market. And capital gains tax, at least for an RRSP, are taxed at 50% of your marginal tax rate. So actually, you'll only be paying 15% of the difference between the 700 and the 1800. So only the money that you gained, you have to pay 15% tax, and you're left with $1,648. You'll notice previously we were only left with $1,377. So you still have your 10% growth. Nothing really changed. The marginal tax rates are the same, but because you figured out a way to defer the tax using an index fund by not selling the stock, then your money was able to grow and compound tax-free, and you're left with more money in the end. So again, you're not going to beat your RRSP, especially if the tax rates are the same. Of course, if the marginal tax rate that you started with is lower, then yeah, you will beat your RRSP. But if your marginal tax rate is higher, which that's when I believe you should start actually putting money into your RRSP or 401k, then the RRSP greatly outperforms. However, the non-registered account isn't so bad if you find a security that can grow tax-free. Now again, consult with your financial advisor because in the United States, the way you pay tax on capital gains is slightly different. They do still have favorable tax rates, but it won't be 50%, I don't believe, of the marginal tax rate. It'll be slightly different. So again, consult with your financial advisor, but the strategy should still be quite similar in the United States. So that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel.